In this video, I'm going to provide an overview of Optimal IdM's SharePoint integration. The diagram here shows a claims-aware application such as SharePoint configured to go to an identity provider for authentication into SharePoint. Our SharePoint integration really consists of two components. One is this identity provider or secure token service that provides the authentication into SharePoint. And the second is our virtual identity server, which provides authentication into any directory, whether that's multiple AD forests, SQL databases, Oracle databases, Sun LDAP, Open LDAP. Users can exist and be authenticated into SharePoint wherever they reside. It's the combination of these two components. There's an accompanying video that covers just our virtual identity server for Federation, which is our identity provider STS, in greater detail. I'm going to focus mostly on the SharePoint integrations here. So, bringing up a LDAP Manager application, you can see that I've configured our virtual identity server component to Active Directory as well as an external directory. So this is an LDAP browser that can browse multiple directories. I have a connection down here to ADLDS, which is where my external user, Joe Cool, exists, and I have an Active Directory here where all of my internal users exist. We can see here. Those are direct connections just from an LDAP perspective into those two data stores. From our virtual identity server connection, we're making again a connection over LDAP to VIS. We have now surfaced our OU equals AD, which is our Active Directory connection. And one additional note, I have removed all of these CNs. I've basically filtered this out. I've selected that through VIS I only want to show OUs, groups, and users. Everything else in my Active Directory is hidden through the virtual identity server. I've done this on purpose because I only want to surface what SharePoint needs, which is users, groups, and OUs. Down here is my OU equals external connection, which is where that Joe Cool user is. So what I have is a complete view of multiple data stores. I also have a SQL database where I've taken users that exist in the SQL Server database and I'm making them look in real time like LDAP users. So again, I can now authenticate users across any data store through VIS using our secure token service, surfacing that to SharePoint. So, bringing up a web browser here, and I've got a couple of links. The first link here is a link over to SharePoint. That actually did a redirect from SharePoint to ADFS, and then ADFS was trusted to our secure token service, which is what we're looking at right here. You could also configure SharePoint to go directly to our identity provider, which is this login screen here. Either is fully supported. This page here in particular you would never really see in the real world either, because this is just showing all the different authentication methods that we have. You can see, and typically customers will deploy this where they want a mix of rules. Perhaps when their internal users are on their internal network, use Windows Integrated, where they just go directly into SharePoint, such as the following. So I'm logged into the machine as the administrator account, and with Windows Integrated I completely went straight into SharePoint. There was no quote-unquote prompt for authentication. If the users are maybe home or in a internet cafe, they're not VPN'd in, then Windows Integrated would fail and we would then present perhaps username and password. So I'll show that now. So I'm actually going to log in with my identity that lives in Active Directory. So we'll go ahead and take a look at my account here. And here I am in Active Directory through VIS, and here's my account in Active Directory directly. So we'll go ahead and log in. So that authentication went from our identity provider over to the VIS service. I was authenticated then against Active Directory, and then several role claims were presented to SharePoint. One thing to note, if you take a look here at the Optimal IdM groups, these are the groups that when we look at my identity directly in Active Directory, I'm a member of these two groups, one group and domain admins. These other groups that are being surfaced from a VIS backslash are actually dynamic groups. They're special groups that are surfaced by the virtual identity server itself. we're going to take a look at a couple of these. So this one in particular, if we take a look, so the member of attribute in AD only has these two groups. Looking at me through VIS, you'll see that I'm a member of several different groups. We actually have a A for auto, a D for dynamic, and an S for static. I'm going to focus just on the dynamic group here, but take a look at the other videos for auto groups, dynamic groups, and static groups on exactly what the difference is between here. So this dynamic group here, marketing, I'm a member of this DG-marketing because my department is set to marketing. And that actually was surfaced over to SharePoint rather, as a claim, and I actually tied it here to this marketing list. So how I got access to that marketing list here was based on the dynamic group marketing. And you can see here DG-marketing has full control. So to carry out the demo scenario, if I change my department flag and field rather to sales, do a refresh here, you'll see that now I'm no longer in the DG-marketing, but I'm in this DG-sales dynamic group. And likewise, if I bring up another browser, log into SharePoint again as myself, we're going to see that what gets surfaced over to SharePoint is indeed the DG-sales, not the DG-marketing. And here's the DG-sales for dynamic group sales. You can see I lost access to the marketing list, but I gained access to the sales list. And that's because I did likewise set permissions on this document library here to the DG-sales. So what this allows you to do is create groups in our virtual identity server that are surfaced as role claims. You'll also note they did come across as the member of attribute from an LDAP perspective. So any LDAP application doing LDAP queries can see the member of and use that group just like they would a normal AD group. But bringing this into Federation in a claims-aware application, we've now surfaced this as role claims. We could, of course, also have a more complex group. So I did this just on department equals marketing. You could string together multiple attributes if you want, all ultimately surfacing as one role claim into SharePoint. So that's extremely powerful from the perspective of being able to drive group membership based on data. Keep in mind, looking at other videos, you'll see that we can connect up to SQL Server, join those objects. So the data doesn't have to necessarily be based in AD. So in this particular case here, I'm configured up to a SQL Server database. I could also drive rules, and I have a dynamic group definition based on cost center being equal to 33. So I'm going to go ahead and update that data, which ultimately went to SQL Server. So this was actually updated in a SQL Server database. You'll see that I'm now a member of this CN equals cost center 33. I could now drive permissions based on that cost center being equal to 33, this group membership, all based on data coming from SQL Server. I didn't need to replicate this into Active Directory, worry about syncs. This was a real live join out to a SQL database. This could be any database, of course. So you're able to now create complex authorization rules within SharePoint without having to synchronize data, manage that data, manage the groups. Additionally, you'll want to take a look at the video on the People Picker Claims Provider functionality. That's also included as a part of the SharePoint solution. And then one final thing here to note is around our reporting dashboard and some of the additional functionality that you get within the system. I'm going to bring up a report here from the Virtual Identity Server that shows you things such as the successful authentications. So through here, this is a web report that goes against a database that we have. You can see a nice listing of who is authenticated to the system. You can have failed authentications, successful authentications, even searches into the system. So compliance is very easy to have as a part of a SharePoint solution now with VIS. You have a complete audit record of who authenticated when and with what claims to your SharePoint system. Please take a look at any of the other videos on the website, such as the Claims Provider, as well as the VIS for Federation Services, which covers the STS component.